What's up guys, Houndish here, and today it is Thursday, so we get the final weekly update from Bungie ahead of the launch of Revenant, and so as expected, it is a pretty hefty one. We'll round up all of Bungie's updates regarding exotics, weapons, launch notes to be aware of ahead of the new episode, and a handful of other items from the blog post. Plus, Bungie give extra clarifications about the Zerf board, when we can expect to pick that up. That's the new skimmer, by the way, if you didn't know. And we get a first look at some of the rewards for Revenant as well, so a busy one today. Hey guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do find it useful, get subscribed. I'll be keeping you posted with all of the Revenant content next week, but now let's get into it. And first up, a quick update from Bungie regarding the Zerf board. That's the new exotic skimmer that we're getting as part of Revenant. And the D2 team said the Zerf board skimmer will be available beginning week 2 of episode Revenant for 97 strange coins, and will continue to be part of Xur's multivarious strange offers until purchased. And so it's good to have that clarification. It won't be available on week 1 by the sounds of it, and of course that first Friday will also be the day where the dungeon launches, but it will become available during week 2. I'm not really sure why there's that 1 week delay, but nonetheless, at least we know when it'll appear, and be sure to stock up on those strange coins if you want to pick it up on the first week that has it. And the date of that visit should be the 18th of October, by the way, so mark your calendars if the Zerf board is very important to you. Otherwise, this week, following the announcement for Revenant, a very small number of folks were able to get early access for the episode. I wasn't one of them, unfortunately, but it does mean that we get a better look at some of the rewards. And so Destiny Bulletin and the Game Post rounded these up right here. For a quick look at the exotic armors, firstly, for the Hunters, a very nice one here, the Mask of Fealty, if that's how you say it. I'm terrible with the names that Bungie like to choose, but a pretty cool looking thing, and it comes with the bonus Null Factor, and Withering Blade hits and bounces create a small stasis crystal and refund a portion of melee energy, and using Withering Blade to shatter stasis crystals or frozen targets releases a spread of Withering Blades. So a pretty nice one right there for stasis, and the stasis theme of course carrying across the artifact, but also multiple new exotics. And for the Warlocks we have the Rime Coat Raiment, and your Bleak Watcher turrets are enhanced with extended range and are surrounded by stasis crystals and a storm, and while standing in the storm you're granted icicles over time, and icicles activate when you fire your weapons, applying slow to targets that they hit. And so that also sounds pretty cool, but lastly, we have the Blast Wave Striders for the Titans, where we gain resistance to our explosions, defeat targets to charge this armor, and once charged, slide or deal explosive self-damage to rocket jump backward, and blast deadly shrapnel projectiles that spawn stasis crystals on impact, and charged rocket jumps grant frost armor as well. So some interesting concepts right there. The other exotic, of course, that we have seen is the Season Pass exotic weapon, and this is the Alethenum, and it comes with Harvester Spike, and the weapon fires a Harvester Spike projectile. Dealing final blows with the weapon creates a single vestige at the target's location, but impaling more powerful combatants with the projectile creates a steady stream of vestiges from the target. Plus with the alchemy trait, the weapon gains energy when picking up vestiges, and a long press with at least 50% energy will cause your next projectile to create ammo bricks for you and your allies on impact, with special bricks being created at 50% energy and heavy bricks being created at 100% energy. Plus it would appear that of course Icebreaker has a stasis component now as well, so Bungie getting pretty frosty ahead of the winter with these stasis upgrades, and let us know your thoughts on all of those down below. Now though, as we get into the bulk of the TWID for the week, it is a pretty hefty one like we said, and firstly, there's an exotic armor tuning preview for Revenant. So getting straight into it, Bungie are updating Lucky Pants for Hunters, and they say it now provides movement bonuses including increased slide distance and sprint speed when a hand cannon is equipped. On top of that, Airborne Effectiveness bonus is active whenever a hand cannon is equipped, not just when the illegally modded holster buff is active. But additionally, it no longer requires the hand cannon to be matched to the super damage type or kinetic to receive the PvE damage buff. On top of that, the Out of Luck cooldown will only trigger if you reach 7 stacks of the PvE damage buff before swapping off the weapon or the timer expiring. On top of that, the maximum damage has been decreased from 600% to 450%. So some interesting changes there. There are more for Hunters though. We'll have to keep moving. There's firstly Younger Hamkara's Spine, and they say it once again provides ability energy on trip mine grenade hits instead of final blows, and it provides plus 33% grenade energy in PvE and 8% in PvP. Then for the Blight Ranger, they've added the ability to cancel your Arc Staff Super while equipped, and damaging or blinding nearby enemies and granting a tier 4 arc weapon damage boost. and they say the damage dealt by this effect scales based on the number of projectiles reflected prior to cancelling, and it no longer creates orbs of power when reflecting projectiles with Arc Staff, and projectiles now instead directly refund super energy, extending the duration of your super. So that sounds pretty cool. Then for Raiju's Harness, they've fully reworked the behaviour of the exotic trait Mobius Conduit, and activating Gathering Storm calls down lightning on all nearby targets, jolting them while also amplifying allies, and defeating Arc debuff targets will now grant a small amount of Gathering Storm energy. But finally, there is one for Essentialism, and so Prismatic and the class items getting some changes as well, and for Spirit of Syntheseps, they've reduced the melee damage bonus provided when both Biotic Enhancements and Stylish Executioner are active by 50%, so a pretty big change on that front. Let us know your thoughts below. That takes us to the Titan changes though, and firstly quite a big one here for Icefall Mantle, and we now gain a stack of Frost Armor for Rapid Stasis Final Blows, and each time we gain a stack of Frost Armor from any source we'll heal by a small amount, and the unique class ability granted by Icefall Mantle now provides maximum stacks of Frost Armor instead of just its custom Overshield. That will also immediately heal for each stack that gets added, and it's no longer preventing sprinting or jump abilities, and it works when the thruster is equipped. Plus class ability energy now begins to recharge immediately after using Icefall Mantle's class ability, and the burst of stasis energy from the class ability now freezes combatants and slows players. It does, however, no longer provide bonus stasis weapon damage, and it also requires a stasis super to be equipped to benefit from its exotic effect. So again, a mixed bag there, but most of those changes fairly significant. That could be quite juicy, especially with some of the artifact mods and things in the next season. For the Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap though, they say they've removed the stasis weapon requirement, and now any final blows or rapid precision hits while behind a rally barricade, and with the stasis super equipped, will create a diamond lance near you, and directly hitting any powerful combatant with a diamond lance will now create 3 stasis crystals, which was previously only bosses and vehicles. So a big shift there, but for Ursa Furiosa and Spirit of the Bear, they say they've increased the maximum super energy gain for Unbreakable in PvE from 15 to 20%, and they fixed an issue where you were gaining more super energy from Unbreakable in PvP than intended, and it now provides a maximum of 10%. For Curious of the Fallen Star though, they say melee final blows while amplified now grant super energy, and they've reduced the damage bonus from Curious to Thunder Crash from 2 times to 1.55 times, and this keeps the overall damage similar to what it was previously, plus they've replaced the Overshield after impact with damage resistance, which is 50% in PvE and 10% in PvP. Then we have the Peacekeepers though, and this has been changed up a bit, and dealing damage to combatants with an SMG increases SMG damage for a short time, up to a maximum of 20 stacks, which is a 100% damage bonus. That lasts for 1 second, but each hit adds a stack and refreshes the timer. So again, that's another one that could be kind of juicy, so it will at the very least be worth a try. We have Mask of the Quiet One though, and rapid final blows and final blows while at critical health now grant Devour, and this effect requires a Void Super to be equipped. So that'll be interesting, but finally, for Stoicism, the Titan exotic class item, and Spirit of the Horn, they say activating Thruster leaves a ball of solar energy behind, exploding and applying Scorch to enemies caught in the blast. For Spirit of Alpha Lupi though, activating Thruster heals you and nearby allies, and finally, for Spirit of Harfrost, activating Thruster spawns a pair of stasis crystals. So on the most part, some fairly good changes there. Finally for the Warlocks though, plenty more changes here, and for the Balador's Wrathweavers, they've adjusted the Hearts of the Ice pack to increase the shadow damage of targets frozen by Shadebinder super projectiles by 100%, regardless of who breaks them out. Plus they've added granting Frost Armor to your allies with Frost Pulse or Winter's Wrath grants you super energy, and it ranges in potency based on how many allies it's granted to. So that's also interesting. For Skull of Dire Ahamkara though, they've added weapon defeats while Devour is active grant super energy, and that ranges from 1% to 4.5% depending on the target type. And for Sanguine Alchemy, it now marks targets you damage while standing in a rift, and you deal 10% extra damage from any source against marked targets, and it also provides Surge ×4 to weapons that match your super damage. For Verity's Brow and Spirit of Verity though, the first stack of Death Throws now provides 40% grenade damage in PvE, and that's up from 20%, plus each additional stack now provides 15% grenade damage up to a maximum of 100% at 5 stacks. That's pretty huge, although they point out PvP bonus damage is unchanged. Then for the Cenotaph Mask, damaging a vehicle, boss, or champion with a trace rifle will once again visually mark the target for player using Cenotaph. And for Osmiomancy gloves, they've reduced the increased seeker distance and speed by 50%. That's primarily because it's been obnoxious in PvP, but then we have the Speaker Sight, and 6 instances of healing a damaged ally in Crucible will spawn an Orb of Power. So those are all of the exotic armor changes for each of the classes. Again, there are some nerfs in there, but quite a lot of reworks. Some of them could potentially be quite juicy, so let us know what stands out to you in the comments section. But Bungie also provide a super damage tuning chart right here. They're making a couple of adjustments, so Thunder Crash and Chorus of the Falling Star will be unchanged, but Pyrogale Gauntlets and Burning Maul will see a 10% damage increase. Of course, that's applying to the super. Then for Spirit of Star Eater and Nova Bomb, there's a 12% damage nerf. Spirit of Star Eater and Twilight Arsenal sees a 26% damage nerf. And then Star Eater with Gathering Storm and Needle Storm is unchanged, but for Celestial Nighthawk and Golden Gun, there is a 5% nerf against bosses only. So nice buff for Burning Maul right there. Mostly, a lot of the changes are fairly small, with the exception of Star Eater and Twilight Arsenal, which is getting a reasonably hefty nerf. That takes us onto weapon tuning though, and we'll do this by archetype as listed in the blog. So for autos, scouts, pulse rifles, SMGs, sidearms and hand cannons, they've rebalanced how PvE damage is dealt to significantly prioritize critical hits. So they've increased critical hit damage by between 5 and 7% depending on the frame, and body shot damage decreases by the same amount depending on the frame. So that's an interesting overall change for those weapons, but into archetype specifics, for pulse rifles and heavy bursts, including Graviton and Revision 0, they're increasing the RPM from 300 to 324, while decreasing damage in PvE by 18% for legendary weapons in the subfamily. Kind of surprised by that, I guess, but Graviton Lance and Revision 0 heavy burst mode will see a reduction of 8% instead. Let us know what you think about that. For snipers though, they're reducing flinch again against combatants by 50%, that's quite big. They're also reducing camera roll against players by 10%, plus increasing damage against miners by 60% and mages by 75%. Then for mini-bosses it's 35% and champions 25%, so that's a pretty big buff overall for snipers. Let us know what you're planning to try out. For glaives though, they've corrected an issue where perks that change the magazine size could sometimes display incorrect preview values. Plus they're increasing the range of shotguns significantly, and the minimum damage after fall-off has been increased from 0% to 40% for damage versus AI only, so that could be pretty good for PvE right there. However, they are reducing rocket-assisted sidearm reserve ammo by 25%, so that'll end up being a reasonably big shift, and Bungie have opted to keep the damage strong, but obviously reduce the amount of available ammunition for them. For trace rifles, they're increasing the base spawn and crate PvP ammo from 25 to 29. Then for machine guns and high impact specifically, they've increased critical hit damage by 4%. Lastly though, for heavy ammo grenade launchers, in general, they've decreased the damage from the detonation by 5% against combatants, but increased projectile impact damage correspondingly. And in PvE, total damage is the same, but split between detonation and impact, and in PvP, heavy grenade launchers now deal approximately 7 and 26% more impact damage depending on the blast radius. For rapid fire frames though, they've increased the impact and detonation damage by 7%, and that takes us to exotic weapons. So for Huckleberry, it now fully reloads on kills, and they've replaced the catalyst to have kinetic tremors, so that's quite interesting. I'll definitely want to try that out. For Taraba though, when Ravenous Beast is active, we gain damage resistance against incoming solar damage, so it's 50% versus combatants and 15% versus players. On top of that though, Symmetry now gains a stack of dynamic charge on kills in addition to precision hits. And for Duality, focused on PvP, they say on Black Wings stacks for maximum effect have been reduced from 5 to 3, but they've extended the duration of the buff from 7 to 10 seconds. So again, give your thoughts, but for Bad Juju, they've increased the lifetime of String of Curses from 3.5 seconds base to 5.5 seconds base, but it's 7.5 seconds with the catalyst, plus they increased the magazine size from 27 to 36. They also say the weapon appears to have become more haunted than it used to be, which is an interesting tease right there. We'll have to see exactly what they're referring to, but for the Exteris, this is getting a few changes, and they've increased the direct hit damage versus combatants by 33%. They've also adjusted the recoil and projectile to have much flatter trajectory by reducing the camera recoil from firing by 50%. They've increased the projectile velocity and reduced the projectile gravity. Plus it has now +5 ammo in reserves, and it spawns a moth on 2 direct hits, but they've reduced the moth cooldown from 4 seconds to 3 seconds shared with the kill trigger. So some big changes to how the weapon actually sort of fires and the projectiles travel in particular. particular, and we'll just have to see how that feels in the game. For Fighting Lion though, it now spawns a volatile burst on direct hits, which could be quite nice. Final 3 exotic weapons here though, and for Prospector, it now spawns 3 powerful cluster bombs on detonation, dealing substantially more damage per shot over a much larger area than previously. They've removed the sticky, flame, and remote detonation functions, but the max size is reduced to 6, and bonus ammo reserves on the catalyst has been changed to plus 50 reload speed. So another big shift for that one, and then for the Chaperone, they've added the ability to trigger Roadborne on 2 rapid precision hits, and while that's active, hits will extend it by 3 seconds, plus it gets 20% extra stability, plus 25 reload speed with Roadborne active, and they've increased the base ammo reserves. Lastly though, for Lumina, they've updated hipfire projectiles to behave more closely to support auto rifle healing shots. And so that will be another interesting one to check out in the game. Quite a lot of changes there to get our heads around. There's a little bit of more specific PvP micro-tuning, as Bungie call it, for certain weapons in the TWID as well. So if you want to check that out for a bit more detail on the PvP side of things, I'll link it down below. They do move on though and show a screenshot of all of the weapons that we'll be getting access to with Revenant. So these are the new themed weapons that'll drop from the new activities. Plus in the TWID, they say they're reprising a bunch of Garden of Salvation weapons with new perks. And so Reckless Oracle, Void Rapid Fire Auto Rifle, which can roll destabilizing rounds paired with Paracausal Affinity. Accrued Redemption, which can roll Offhand Strike and pair with Archer's Gambit. Then there's the Zealot's Reward, Void Rapid Fire Fusion Rifle, which can get destabilizing rounds and Reservoir Burst. Ancient Gospel, where they give the example of Rampage and Kill Clip. But then the Sacred Provenance, a kinetic aggressive pulse rifle, which can get Demolitionist kinetic tremors. Prophet of Doom, which is an arc precision shotgun with threat remover and Volt Shot, which is interesting. And then there's the Omniscient Eye, the Solar Rapid Fire Sniper with 4 times the charm and precision instrument. So those are the element and perk updates and certain combinations that we'll be seeing from Garden of Salvation in Revenant. Otherwise though, Bungie tease even more weapons that are coming into the game as part of the Revenant season as well. So the Pursuit weapon will be Fair Judgment, a Stasis Precision Auto Rifle. The Crucible weapon is Anonymous Autumn, an arc lightweight sidearm, so that one's being reprised. Then there's Competitive Deadlock, a Stasis Precision Frame Shotgun, with Vanguard Ops able to drop Wicked Sister, a strand adaptive grenade launcher. And then for the Nightfall, there's the Rake Angle, which is a Stasis Aggressive Glaive, and the Plug 1 will return, the Arc Precision Fusion Rifle. Plus for Gambit, there will be a reprised Bygones, which will be interesting as well. They also tease that Iron Banner will get brand new armor for this episode as well, so we can see an image of that there. And they say there'll be 2 new weapons for Iron Banner. Tinasha's Mastery, a Stasis Rocket Frame Sidearm, where the 3rd column can get Air Trigger, Offhand Strike, Deconstruct, Enlightened Action, Impulse Amplifier, Loose Change, and Reverberation. And column 4 can get Adagio, Bait and Switch, Chill Clip, Desperate Measures, Frenzy, One for All, and Surrounded. Then there's Archon's Thunder, the Stasis High Impact Machine Gun, where column 3 can get Arc Trigger, Enlightened Action, Dynamic Sway Reduction, Envious Assassin, 4th times the charm, and High Impact Reserves. There's also a new bonus, which is redacted in there. And then column 4 can get Desperate Measures, Onslaught, Headstone, Killing Tally, Tap the Trigger, Target Lock, and Rewind Rounds. So even Iron Banner's found its way to getting a bit of love this season as well. Lastly though, Bungie say they'll be doing their first ever Discord quest for Destiny 2, and they say on October 8th, if you play Destiny 2 for just 15 minutes while on Discord, you'll earn a code for the Celestial Ties shader, and once you have your hands on the code, that can be redeemed on Bungie.net. And they say this quest concludes on October 22nd, but for full info, head to the quest's Discord page, which they link in the TWID, that's also in the description box, on October 8th, where there'll be more specifics about what we need to do. For today though guys, that is the TWID, or at least the majority of it. There are a few other items in there if you fancy trolling through something like 8,500 words this week, so a very long one. Hopefully the breakdown today has been helpful though. If it has, a rating really does help us on the channel. Once again, let us know any standout changes or new bits of content you're looking forward to in the comment section, but otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.